guy for all these things he says about me. We still carry on that tradition of a coach lining up coaches to speak, or whoever's going to speak for devotion. And after I gave him that title, years ago, he'd sometimes call me on a Thursday night and say, "By the way, Coach, you're on it." Yeah, that was some good times. We had great times there, and we certainly missed it. When they moved, it took 4 or 5 people to take over all the jobs that he had. He did so much for us. And I think our other coaches didn't realize all he did until he was gone. And I talked a little bit last night about delegating. So I want to talk a little bit today. I said some of the best stuff I had probably was today. And it's different. But it goes along probably with some of the stuff that you all are doing. And so I hope this kind of hits the spot a little bit. I do want to share a story with you. This is good. I like this one. I ran this by about 200 people the other night, and they liked it, so I hope you all did too. There's a truck driver, and he's going down the road, early one morning, and there's a car with a young lady right behind him. They pull up to a red light. He stops, she stops. She jumps out of her car, runs up to the guy, steps up, on his step, picks on the window, says, "Hey, mister, my name's Chelsea." Hope nobody's named Chelsea in here. Says, "I just want you to know you're losing part of your load." He's kind of a taciturn guy, he kind of gives her that look. Okay, goes on. She runs, jumps in her car, and they go, another 3 or 4 lights, and he hits another one. He stops again. Well, she jumps out of her car again, and here she comes, pecking on that window. He cracks it down a little again and looks at it, doesn't say anything. She says, "Mister, I just want you to know you're still losing part of your load." And he says, "Mm-hmm." Rolls that window back up, takes off. Well, she goes, gets in her car, she follows him down the road again. So again, they go to another 3, 4, 5 lights until he gets caught again. He sees that light change and he speeds up so he can get there before she does. And he puts it in park and he jumps out and he runs back to her car, pecks on her window, and she rolls it down. And he says, "Hey, lady," he said, "I just want you to know something. I'm supposed to be losing part of my load. This is a salt truck." Hey, now, I'm not going to tell you what color this girl's hair is. Because some of my best friends have hair. Yeah. Maximizing potential, doing the best that you can do with the gifts and talents that you have. So we talk about maximum. Maximum is the ultimate, supreme, greatest. Potential, that lies within you. Put them together, good definition, using your abilities to the best. The definition I like the best is extending yourself beyond your known limits. Extending yourself beyond your known limits, maximizing potential. The best illustration I've heard, and I love sharing this story, I hope you haven't heard it before. It's in the book though, but was with a kind of famous author. He was a speaker and a pastor, and he was on a speaking engagement in Europe, and he was staying with host family in Germany, and of course they travel back and forth to his speaking engagements on the Autobahn. Everybody's familiar with that, that super highway that crisscrosses across Europe. You can go as fast as you want on it. And I would love to drive on that with my wife Linda. Go as fast as you want to go. She's kind of like my own state trooper. She doesn't have to look at the speedometer. She just says, "You're going too fast." She said, "I'd love to have a ticket where I could just write them out for you," things like that. And, I love when she goes to sleep when I'm driving, so I can just take off, But otherwise, she's always there, and I can just see her on the Autobahn. I can put that pedal down, and I can just look over at the grid and say, "Dear, we're flying now." You can't say a word about it. Luke's enjoying that. Yeah, I can see that after talking with him last night. So, anyway, they were going to an engagement, and the host says, "How would you like to drive today?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to. Let me check it out." So he gets in the car, he takes off, quickly gets up to about 70, 75 miles an hour. That's what he's used to doing in the United States. And they go, 2 or 3 minutes, and the host looks at him and said, hey, we're seated still. Are you going to drive this thing or what? And he says, okay. So he puts the pedal down. He goes, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95 miles an hour. Well, he's getting a little out of his comfort zone. He's not comfortable doing that. His palms are starting to get a little sweaty. His heart's starting to race. At the same time, he feels a little exhilarated because he's doing something he's never done before. It feels pretty good. So this goes on a few more minutes. And again, the host looks at him, gives him that little grin he has, and says, do you want me to drive? We're not going to get there at this speed. So he takes a deep breath, he pushes that pedal down, and off they go. 105, 115, 125, 130 miles an hour. Wow. And now he's feeling NASCAR race driver, king of the road. If y'all aren't going to drive, just pull over and let a real man hug this road. So he's going good, 15 or 20 minutes, and then he looks in his rear view mirror. And here comes the little black Mercedes up, and zooms around him. And his head just almost hits the steering wheel. He's just, oh gosh, I thought I was getting it, and I'm just blown off the road by this Mercedes. And his host again looks at him and says, you see, you're only driving as fast as you will, but not as fast as you can. Mm-hmm. So he said, I learned 2 or 3 great principles. I'm not going to share them all with you, but there's a couple I want to share with you. And the first is the principle of comparison, which basically says don't get caught in the comparison trap. All right, in 2 Corinthians, Paul even talks about this. He says, you shouldn't measure yourself against others as some are in the habit of doing. Then he goes on and he does a little discourse about that. But, we look at ourselves and sometimes we say, well, I'm stronger than so-and-so. I'm faster. I'm smarter. I'm prettier. I'm better in music or art or whatever it may be. But sooner or later, you're going to find someone that's smarter than you, prettier than you, faster than you, stronger than you, better in music, better in whatever it is. And if all you base your success on is being better than someone else, sooner or later, you're going to meet your match and you're setting yourself up for failure. So as I said last night, the best definition for success is doing the best you can do with the abilities that God gives you and only measuring yourself against yourself. Then you don't have to worry about getting caught in this comparison trap. Now there's some great stories. One's from a biblical standpoint. The parable of the talents. Yep. The guy that gives you the master's two versions. One, but he was going away, gave one guy 5 talents, gave 1 2, and 1 1. All right, there's all kinds of different sermons on this, so I'm not going to go into it a great deal. All right, so he goes away, comes back. The guy with 5 had doubled his. The guy with 2 had doubled his. The guy with 1 went and hid it. All right, so there's a lot of stories about it. But it's very likely the guy with 1 looked at these others and said, look at all they have. There's no way I can compete with them. He got caught in the comparison trap. He said, I just better hold on to mine and just give back what I've got. Because I could go out and there's no way I can do what these guys are doing. They got more than I do. So we got to be careful what we do with ourselves. We got to be careful what we do with our kids. We got to be careful what we do with other people when we get into those kind of situations. I was talking with Duane's family last night, about the company and all these kind of things, and I said, oh look, wait a minute, you got people out there, they've already got this seizure, well, it's all over the world. People selling millions of it. There's nobody left for me to even sell it if I wanted to. Yep. I got to be careful about that trap, because I figure not everybody's using this.
That's right.
So we're all a little guilty of that from time to time. You got to be careful. There's another neat little story about a young boy who was sat in his father's wood shop in Brazil. Now, he sat there for all his life, for 12 years, watching his dad sculpt wood. And one day, he decided, I'm going to try this. The only problem was he didn't have any hands. And so he was a leper, and he lost his hands early in life, only had the nubs of his arms, to work with. But he picked up a piece of wood, held it between his arms and his feet, put the chisel in his mouth, he started to sculpt wood. Later on in his life, he'd sculpted 12 life-size figures of the disciples and their national treasures in Brazil. If this little kid had looked around and said, I'm not like anybody else, I can't do what other people do, I can't even do what my dad does, he would have sat there on the porch, as we say, for the rest of his life. But he didn't worry about comparing himself to others. He said, this is what I'm going to do. Pablo Casals, great violinist, 85 years old, was practicing 5 hours a day at that time of his life. One of his colleagues said, Pablo, why are you doing this? You're semi-retired. He said, I'm getting better. There's no reason for me to stop using my talents when I can still improve. Great lessons about comparison. The second principle has to do with the principle of capacity. And this simply says that the user does not determine the capacity of a product. It's determined by the manufacturer. So the driver that day was going 130 miles an hour, but the manufacturer had set the speed limit for that car for 180. So it placed limits on how fast he was going that day. It wasn't the manufacturer, it was the driver. Now that's a great analogy for us, because we as humans, many times, we're created by a master manufacturer, master designer. And we're set, if you will, to go about 180 miles an hour. But we get in our comfort zone, and we'll go about 65 or 70. We put it in cruise control. We feel pretty good about ourselves. And we just stay cruising along. Oh yeah, this is a pretty good life. But that's not what we were designed for. We were designed not to be average, but to be excellent. We were designed not to be ordinary, but extraordinary. Yep. That was the master plan. How do we get there? We got to put the pedal down. We got to reach, and we got to use our talents and our gifts to the maximum. We got to maximize our potential. That's what it's all about. And then we have to empty those gifts on a daily basis so that the next day we can be filled up with a little bit more, so we can start reaching that 180 miles per hour that we're talking about. Great analogy that this guy shared with us on that little road trip. Unfortunately, this guy's name was Miles Monroe. He died in a plane crash just in this last year. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with him or read any of his stuff, but I've got 4, 5, 6 books by him. He's a fantastic author and speaker. And I think one of his kids wasn't on the plane, but he and his wife and son died. I really hate to hear that. But if you want to understand about running a business, there's a couple of books about how you set up a business from a spiritual standpoint. I don't remember the title, but I'll email it to you. You can pass it on to people. I mean, it's fantastic. You know, you can relate it to coaching, business, anything you want to do. This guy's sharp. And how you lead responsibility with others so he can go ahead and do his other things, but it took him a long time to set it up. I was on a plane to Austin, Texas, and I was reading a book. My fellow counselor, Ruth Marie Polly, knows I like to read, so she always gets me something at Christmas. We usually go see my daughter, Jacqueline, and it was called The Man I Want to Be. And it's kind of about the flow of the Spirit, how that works in your life. And the question was, you know, we're always talking about how do you become the best? You know, how do you get better? You know, you always hear in the Army, be all you can be, you know, all that kind of stuff. We hear that all the time in sports and, you know, all these other things. The question is, how do you measure that? You know, is there a way to measure it? The author had this question, says, we measure it by our capacity to love. How you love your family, how you love your kids, how you reach out to your coworkers, whether you like them or not. You know, we're not going to like every coworker, but how you love in that. So we can't truly love unless we allow God's Spirit to reach through us to others. All right? There's a great verse in Psalms 92:12 that says, the righteous shall flourish like a palm tree. Now, flourish to me means live abundantly. Live abundantly to me means maximizing your potential.
That's right.
Okay? So if I were to ask you, what's the main purpose of the tree, you're probably going to say, to give shade or produce fruit. You scientific people probably say, put oxygen back into the atmosphere. I wouldn't go that far. You might, I don't think I went that far in science. All right, but its main purpose, even though all those are the correct answers, is to find its source. It's going to dig those roots down in there and find water, because if it doesn't have its source, it can't do any of the above that we just talked about. All right, we're just like the tree. Now, we've got all these talents and gifts and abilities inside us, but if we don't find our source, then we can't flourish like that tree. We'll languish, and we'll be like that tree without water, just a little old scraggly thing, just barely getting by and not being able to maximize our potential. Now, Jesus made a staggering claim in John 7:38. He said, anybody's thirsty, let him come to me and drink. He went on to say that whoever believes in me, out of your belly will flow streams of living water. Now, the psychologists have taken this term, out of your belly, and they call it now brain in the gut. Now, you all know what I'm talking about, because you've ever had that feeling when things are really going good, you're really happy. It's down in here. It fills your whole body. It's not in your head, it's not in your heart, all right? You also know when something's going wrong, or you feel like something's wrong in the middle of the night, and say, I got to call my kid. You know what I mean? Those kind of things. It's down in here. So if something bad's happening, that's what they're talking about. That's what Jesus is talking about too. He says that if you're living this life of abundant life, if you're flourishing like that tree, he said that Spirit's going to be flowing from me through you to others. You're going to have a great life. We got to understand our source. There's a story of a guy who really enjoyed working. He helped others share their successes. He helped them become successful people. He couldn't wait to go to work every day. When he got to be about 65, they kept saying, you're ready to retire. He said, well, I hadn't really thought about it. But he looked it up in the Bible and said, couldn't find the word retire in there because it's not in there. Nobody ever retired in the Bible. I was talking with a pretty young lady the other day. She was talking about maybe retiring. The comment was made that, I may retire from this job, but I'll never retire because there's other things to be done, especially from the spiritual world. So he kept working. He semi-retired, fully retired. Then he kept volunteering. And then he was on his deathbed. So all these people started coming to visit him. Co-workers, people he had helped along the way, his family was there. And one of his last comments was, I wish I could have spent more time at the office. Now that's different. Everything that we hear today is, don't spend as much time at the office. Do this, do that. Spend more leisure time, all those kind of things. But here's a guy saying the exact opposite. Now, working, our careers, is kind of a balancing act, between our faith, between our families, and our careers. You got to balance that out. Now, what I'm about to say, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to throw faith and family under the bus. I'm not doing that. But now, God wants us to work. He created work. Now, listen to this. In the fourth commandment says, 6 days shalt thou work, and the seventh shall be set aside as a holy day unto God. All right, we hear a lot of sermons about that seventh day, don't we? How many do we hear about those 6? Well, let me say a few about those 6. All right? He wants us to work. He wants us to enjoy it. He wants us to take that spirit and share it in the workplace. How are other people going to know about this abundant life and this flow of the Spirit? Okay? And most of the heroes in the Bible had secular vocations anyway. Isaac, he's kind of a real estate guy. Jacob was a rancher. You had Daniel, he was an immigrant, ended up being a prime minister. You had Esther, she was a beauty queen, ended up being a queen. You had Lydia, a businesswoman. Think of all the great mothers that were there. Jesus being a carpenter before he went into ministry. There are very few people that were actually considered pastors and things like that. They were secular people, and it was through their lives that God blessed them. All right, that's the way we need to look at work. God planned it that way. He put Adam to work. He gave him a job. That was one of his first things he did. So research shows the best moments in life come not from leisure, pleasure, sex, or chocolate. And Linda's not here, so I'm going to say that occasionally we may look at each other and say, remember that time? She said, you better not say that. But it says that the best moments come when we're totally immersed in a significant project or task that challenges us to our highest abilities. Think about that.
Sure.
Yeah. We're so caught up, the times alters, our focus is just, we're consumed by what we're doing. We're stretched, we're challenged, and we become one with whatever that project is. I know a plumber, he works for me, son. You know, I said last night, I kind of sold my apartment, so he doesn't work for me as often. And one time, you know, he'll call in the middle of a project and say, you know, we got a problem here. I said, okay. Can you fix it? That's all I want to know. But he wants to tell me about it. He loves what he does. And he'll call back maybe 2 or 3 times in a day, filling me in on the progress. I keep saying, can you fix it? You know, but he loves what he's doing. You know, carpenters are the same way. Computer engineers. You know, my son-in-law's one of those. He loves these problems. He'll get on the phone and start solving naval defense problems, you know, things like that. It's good. Whether you're in sales, whether you're in coaching, whatever you're in, that's that flow going through you, because that's what your talents and your gifts are. That's when you're closest to your Creator. For me, Friday nights. I always tell coaches when I speak with them, I said, when you go out to a game on Friday night, do you ever just stop and look around right 10 minutes before you play and just kind of take it all in, take a breath, you know, look at the teams, look at the other coaches, look at cheerleaders, the band, the stands, look at the night sky and the lights, and say, look at what we're doing. And one time I said, we call this work. Man, this is great. And for the next 2.5 hours, you're totally lost. You don't pay anything about time. Sometimes I look at my watch after the game just to see what time it is, see how fast the time went by. But that's what we do. And this condition, they call, researchers again, call this flow. Interesting, isn't it? Swept up in something that's kind of outside of ourselves. We're caught up in it. And that's fantastic. They've been studying this for 30 years, and they said it happens more at work than it does at leisure. They've also found that the lowest ebb in the United States is on Sunday mornings. That's interesting. But I don't think this is really a jab at churches. I think it's a jab that it says that when we're sitting idly, we don't have this kind of flow. All right, I think in church you've got to be engaged. So I think this is more people just sit around on Sunday morning. It says not much happens for you when you're sitting around. Now, all skills God-given, so we're kind of in touch with our Creator. All right. And I said last night, we don't work for money. We don't work for fame. You know, it's not bad to have money. Don't get me wrong. Recognition, all that kind of stuff. What do we work for? We work for this flow. We work for that feeling. Now, because God gives us these talents and He gives us these gifts to work, it makes sense that when we're working and we have this flow, that we're probably closer to Him than any other time. So we need to appreciate the work that we have to do, and not think of it as, oh, I'm doing something wrong here, you know, because I'm working. Again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying throw your family under the bus or your faith, but I'm saying God created us to work. I used to think that I was closer to the Lord during the football season than any other time. And so as you're a little stressful, I spend a little more time on my knees, you know, things like that. A lot of things take place. But after studying this concept of flow, I've come to realize that that's when the problem with my talents and gifts for this particular career that I have, I'm closer to the Lord then, because I'm doing what He created me to do, you know. So it all kind of falls into place. You have to surrender to maximize this flow. Now, surrender is not a real common thing, you know, in our society. Nobody likes coaches. Who wants to surrender? You know, you don't want to throw in a white towel. But I'll get to my point here in just a minute. My daughter, as I said, is in Austin, Texas. She was a little older in life, having a baby. They've been trying for 3 or 4 years. And it was her second marriage. It's not the one I talked about last night. This is the baby. We haven't had too many problems out of her. She's good. All right. So, you know, the grandparents were all with her in July. I wasn't, you know, we'd started practice, so I just get updates by phone. And they all left. They've been with her 2 months. She had a doctor's appointment. She put the baby in the car, and all of a sudden she said, "Oh my, I'm a little scared. We've never been out of the house together. First road trip. You know, what if? And I'm sure some of you mothers, fathers, I felt that way. I remember the first time I took her out. You know what I'm talking about? You know, this little precious thing. You know, what if I'm in charge? I'm in control. You know, the next time she's going to be a little scared. 16 years later, when little Quincy gets behind the wheel, she's sitting in the passenger side, and it doesn't matter how hard she pushes that foot down, and she can't stop that car.
That's right.
And Linda's kind of that way with me and with the kids. I've taught our kids and grandkids how to drive. She says, "You get them trail broken. I don't want to get in with them until you've done it." And then she gets upset because they drive like I do. She said, what's this? They don't stop signs. She said, "What's this rolling stop?" And I said, "Well, that's the way Dad taught us to do it." You know, they whistle around. You know, I said, "You told me to teach them." So she has to get to where they can pass the driver's test. You know. But anyway, I just had to throw that in. You remember this song, "Carrie Underwood, Jesus Take the Wheel"? Yeah. All right, great song. Very, very good thing. All right, so Jesus is convenient to us, I think. You know, you just throw his name out and say, we got a problem here. You know, health, family, financial, whatever. I need your help. Let's put him behind the wheel now. We like to hold on, don't we? We want to be in control all the time. We'll surrender it for periods of time. But now, if we really want to surrender, we got to say, you got to take my thoughts too. Maybe my ego. How about our wallets? You know, we don't like that either. You know, we want to hold on to that money sometimes. All right, but if we really want to do that, we got to let him take that wheel. Now, surrender, as a lot of people would suggest, is not passivity. It's not a crutch. It's not any of those things. It involves exercising creativity, making decisions, taking a lot of responsibility. Now, most of you, I think of college basketball right now, we've seen a guy shoot that winning shot at the end. You know, what do they do? Boy, they hit that shot, those arms go up, you know, right here. I don't know if I need this mic or not, do it. Am I loud enough without?
Yeah.
Plenty good for me, yeah.
I'll just sit it down. All right, we had a little bigger room last night. All right, so, you know, the quarterback throws a touchdown pass, arms go up. You know, it's a kind of universal signal for victory.
Yep.
All right. So you see on TV, anyway, we don't see it too much in America, but a king and subjects come in, they kneel before the king, kind of like surrender. You watch a television show, an army conquers another one, the leader comes in, he kneels down in surrender or subjection to the king. Now to the conqueror. Now, these seem like total opposites. But sometimes you have to have surrender before you can have victory. Now, in the coaching world, we really understand it. And I think in the business world, you understand that too. Because to have a successful team, the individuals have to give up some of their individuality. They have to give up their egos for the team to succeed. Now, no team, these NBA stars, you read about Michael Jordan and some of his great teams, the years he was scoring 55, 60 points a game, they didn't win. He had to drop it down where his own was scoring 35 or 40, you know, for his team to be successful. And he had to buy into that. And he had to let the other guys develop as players. And you can read about the NBA, you can read about the NFL, any of these great sports teams, they have to give up some of their own ego, their own individuality. Same thing, high school, any level. But you'll find this is also true in business.
Yep.
So there's a common thread there. In the spiritual world, it's the same thing. Jesus knew this long before we did. You know, he said you got to give up your life before you can find it. And then he modeled this, you know, with his own life. You know, in the garden, he said, "Not your will, but mine be done." And then he went ahead to prove it on the cross. So if you want to experience victory in your life, you got to surrender. And surrender brings victory. Surrender brings victory, and with victory comes power. And I think this is true in our individual lives, and I think it's also true in our careers. this is the story I started to tell last night, and a lot of you said you were coming back, so I didn't want to repeat the same thing. But this is a situation that happened to me early in my coaching career. And I mentioned this in the book. I actually start off with it. So if you read it, you're just getting a personal rendition of it now. But in 1976, I was a second-year head coach, 25 years old, at Prestonsburg High School. I was there 9 years before I went to Belfry, where I've been for 31 now. And, you know, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. You know, I was just a young guy. But we were on our way to the school's first district championship. And that's pretty big in those days because only one team got in the playoffs. You had to win your way in then. You know, everybody gets in now. It's kind of easy, you know. So, and we'd won the two or three district games. Only had one left, and we were favored to win. We were better than this team. And it was one of those nice October nights we went out to play, and we did what we were supposed to do. We jumped out to a 2-touchdown lead. We kicked off. We went down and made the tackle. You know, the kicking team goes off, defense runs on. I looked across the field, and one of our young men was lying face down on the far side of the field. And I started out to check on him. You know, we didn't have all these team physicians and things that we have now. And I just got this sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I just, you know, that brain in the gut thing. And I just knew this young man was hurt badly. And as I reached his side, he was saying, I can't move. I can't move. And, you know, he was loaded onto an ambulance, took forever because nobody ever dealt with anything like that. You know, took him to local hospital, took him on to Lexington, you know, rushed him down there. We finished the game. We won easily. We went to the locker room. It was, I've never been in a locker room like that. You could hear a pin drop. You know, it was just an eerie silence. No cheering, no celebration. You wouldn't know if we'd won a game, let alone a district championship. It was just quiet, total quiet. All our team, all our coaches were just concerned about the teammate. And that's the way it should have been. It's not about the wins and the losses. You know, it's about the big things in life. And we learned some great lessons. I did as a young coach, and those players did. And to this day, I'm probably as close to that group of players as any that I've ever been with, because we went through some tough things. I had a bunch of sophomores that year. This young man was a sophomore. And so for the next, you know, 2 or 3 years, we kind of went through all this stuff together. One of those guys, I'm going to get off, but I saw him at the state tournament last week. I hadn't seen him in years, and he's talked with my wife and I. He was going to the ball game, I guess at least an hour, just standing in the court, just talking. You know, not necessarily about this, but just we just had that kind of relationship with those young men. So I went home. Got a call in the middle of the night confirming that his spinal cord had been severed and that this young man was paralyzed. He's fighting for his life. You know, I get up early the next morning, I go see my aunt. She's kind of my prayer warrior. I was close to my parents, but spiritual things, you know, we talk, but she was my prayer partner. She was my prayer warrior. She's the one that guided me, you know, along the pathways of life, you might say. And then, gosh, we went through the season, and I started visiting Stuart, you know, during the week, driving to Lexington and seeing how he was doing, he and his family, and coming back to practice. It was tough. It was a tough week, if you can imagine. And there's a lot of fear there with the team, with the school, with the community. And you know, you read about these kind of things, you hear about it. But I can tell you, you don't have any idea what it's like until it happens to you, until it happens to your school, until it happens to your life, until it happens to your community, until it happens to you. You know, and it happens in all kinds of things, not just football. You hear about horseback riding accidents, you hear about gymnastics, you hear about basketball players, you know, it can, you know, cheerleading, anything. But in this case, it was a football player, it was mine. So we finished the season. And then after the season, I had some big questions to answer. And the biggest question was it worth it? Was it worth it for me to continue coaching and take a chance on this happening again? Well, obviously, I'm still coaching. But it took a lot of prayers of my own and a lot of prayers of people praying for me to kind of get me through this I didn't stop working. I didn't just give up or anything. You know, I'm one of these people kind of stays to it. You know, I got a lot of perseverance. But, you know, that fear was still there. What if? What if? What if? But I learned some great lessons about spiritual warfare early in my life. That, you know, fear doesn't come from God, it comes from the enemy. And I had a lot of help in growing from that. You know, some people don't run into that till later in life. Some people run in younger. But I learned very early that you know, you got to deal with these spiritual powers sometimes if you're going to get through things. So I remember walking in the locker room in this early winter, probably in 1977. And as I was getting through this, I knew one thing that I had to do, and I had to surrender my career to God. I think if you're going to be successful in whatever you're going to do, you got to let go of the wheel. And this was bigger than me. I couldn't do this for myself. I'm telling you, this was big. And there was a cloud over our program for a while. But even with that, I couldn't. I just said, this is more than I can comprehend. How do we get through this? And spending a lot of time with my aunt, I realized that's what I had to do. I had to surrender my career. I said, you have to run it. I remember walking in the locker room, just me. I said, this is your program. You got it. You direct it. You run it. I'm the coach. You tell me what to do, and I'll do what I'm supposed to do, but you do it. I did the same thing when I came to Belfry. About 3 years later, I came back to my aunt's, and, you know, and it wasn't that I hadn't been there for 3 years, obviously. We prayed every Thursday night, you know, sometimes by phone, sometimes I'd stop by while I lived in Prestonsburg, then we became phone conversations. But I came by and I said, you know, things still aren't right. I said, I don't feel like the program's where it needs to be. I don't feel like I'm where I need to be. And at that time, she said, you know, she always had that right answers for everything. She's a great lady. She said, you need a little bigger dose of the Holy Spirit. She was right. You know, I'm sitting there with tears running down my cheeks. But I had to surrender my life then. You know, I had to let that part go. I had to let go of the wheel. That part. And since then, I've kind of spent a lot more time in the passenger seat. And it's made a lot better. It's been a pretty good ride. You know, it hasn't been easy. You know, as coaching, it's tough business. So I guess what I'm telling you is that to maximize potential, to get the most out of our talents and gifts and abilities, we have to surrender ourselves to allow the flow of this Spirit that's available to us to come through us, to reach out to others into whatever it is we're doing, and whatever you do in life. And that's kind of what I want to share with you today. It doesn't matter if you're a young person, you know, if you're 80 or whatever. I always like to say that Moses was 80 and he started the greatest adventure of his life. And, you know, David was a young guy at 17 when he fought Goliath. So there's no limit on age. There's no limit on accomplishments. But it's not about what you do. It's about, are you doing things to the maximum? Are you getting that 180 miles an hour? But to do it, you've got to surrender. You gotta allow God to use what you have. Because at some point, you'll get to that stage where I can't do this. And I'm going to tell you, it's a lot easier to give in early than it is late. Mm-hmm. That's what I wanted to share with you this morning. I hope it has been effective and goes along a little bit with what you all are trying to do here today. Thank you very much.
We're going to do a little Q&A, so if anybody have any questions, we did this last night, but we want to open it up. If anybody's got any more questions this morning, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody because I don't know everybody, but I mean, I've been taking so many notes last night and this morning. I got enough for the next 5 weeks of any training that I have to do for my business.
Absolutely.
It's super applicable, and not just in business or sports, but in life. So does anybody have any questions though while we have him? Not everybody at once, one at a time. I can't answer everybody. Anybody have any coaching questions? Does anybody feel like you just want to go coach something?
Yes.
I mean, I want to do that right now. Yeah, Kevin, you got a question?
I was thinking about this last night. Sometimes maybe we have freshmen or the younger generation coming in, and you might have a minor problem with the freshman, somebody just getting started. How often have you had to deal with this, and how do you handle it when you've got the petty situation, and when you look at delegation versus them coming to you, the man, versus you delegating it to Duane? How do you handle that, and how do you recommend in business and in life in delegation?
That's a really good question. Before I finish, I need to tell you a few things about this young man, Stuart. I need to give you a little closure on that. I always people say, hey, what about this guy? But anyway, that's a good question. And my coaches, they say sometimes we say, we don't want to bother you with this, And they take care of a lot of things, what they call petty things. They say, it's not nothing to worry about. And then I get a call, and I say, well, I didn't know about that. And I said, I'll ask your coach. I said, hey, did something go on in the locker room that I need to know about? And they said, yeah, it wasn't anything. I said, well, apparently it was something according to this parent, So, but a lot of little things take place, and I trust them to deal with a lot of stuff. We have somebody like on duty in the locker rooms, things happen at practice, things go on at school, and if they, they find out about stuff, I guess, negative things sooner than I do. If they think it's of pretty big importance, they'll bring it to me and I deal with it. And, I talked a little bit about discipline last night, and you've got to have discipline within your program. I think you've got to have discipline within your company. I was talking with this guy, gosh, I don't know who it was, just in the last week or so, that he had to let an employee go because it was his second warning. He said, I told you, if you do this again, I've got to let you go, And hopefully, I talk with our kids about stuff like that all the time. I said, you can't do this. You're going to lose a job later on. It doesn't matter if it's a football player or just a student. You said you got to come to school every day. You can't live in the real world if you don't do these kind of things. You got to come to practice. There's consequences. If you don't play. You don't do this. You can't stay on the team. There's all kinds of things that we try to apply to real life. But sometimes situations, get enlarged, and then how do we deal with discipline? We do have a kind of an athletic policy handbook that our athletic director a few years ago created. He wanted me to help him with it, and I said, I don't need one. And he said, I know you don't, but the other coaches do, because I've just always kind of winged it. I said, I know what's best. Each kid's different, each situation's different. He said, we need something in writing, because of policy, just the way America is. And I just never really done one. We have one in place, and it really is probably more for other coaches than it is for me. But I kind of follow that too, and you can vary from it a little bit. I don't know if that answers your question or not exactly. Anything else?
Tell us about the kid.
Stuart. About Stuart. Great young man. We went through some times together. He did some rehab in Louisville. Of course, my wife's from Louisville, so we visited down there frequently. And eventually, he got back. He came to ball games. He came into our locker room. I always worried a little bit how that would affect our team, And they embraced him. It was a real positive kind of thing. They loved seeing him after ball games. He'd come in, and if he came beforehand, they seemed to inspire them. So that was a good thing. That was probably 80, 81 before he was actually back and ready to come into games and that kind of thing, somewhere in there. He married, had a daughter. He worked some, but he just couldn't maintain that, all the time. Lived in Lexington most of the time. Occasionally, he'd come back to see his dad. He divorced, unfortunately, toward somewhere in his life. He gave his life to the Lord at some point. That he just said, I knew I was ready. We talked at least once a year, if not more often. We kept a great relationship through it. Never held any grudges toward the sport of football, loved it, watched it all the time. Our first championship, he was like the second or third person that called to say congratulations. He had a great positive attitude, great sense of humor. Just, I always thought he handled this better than I did, better than maybe the family. You know, he said, you know, just one of those things. You know, he said, I tackled the guy wrong, had my head down. You know, so it was just that. He said, my biggest regret was that I didn't get to finish my high school career. I would much rather this happen when I was a senior rather than a sophomore, because he's a big kid. You know, he's kind of thin. I don't know if 180 is thin, but he's like 6'2", 180, but you know, pretty good sized young man, and was going to be a good football player. And just one of those, you know, freakish kind of things that sometimes happens, and we don't understand all that. You know, the neat thing is his parents let his brother play afterwards. You know, sure did. And I talked with them, and he died about a year and 2 months ago. So I was talking with them afterwards, and I said, you know, I always admired you for letting your brother play. His brother play, and they said, well, we weren't going to, but he told us, he said, are you just going to lock me in my room for the rest of my life and not let me do anything? And they said, well, I guess you're right. You know, we just can't. You know, they wouldn't let him do anything. You know,
yep.
I'm trying to protect him so much. And he went out, and he's a good football player. You know, he played all through high school and did real well. But that from a parent standpoint, I would have been cautious too. I think you can understand that. But they allowed him to do that. So that's a little bit about Stuart and our relationship. And the guys that knew him, you know, they said, boy, he had a great personality. He had one of those souped up fans, you know, every now and then he'd come Pressburg cruise around and stuff. And they said, yeah, you always knew when he came to town. That kind of thing. Anything else?
Coach, how'd you get the title?
How do you, when you experience success or great amount of success, how do you silence your ego like person? What have you done to keep your ego out of that?
You talk to yourself. And like I was talking about this a little bit last night too, is you get somebody to hold you accountable. You get them to say, am I okay? Am I doing the right things? And you know, you have some success and you get your name out there. And I'll tell you, one of my greatest fears is this. This might sound wrong, but it's the fear of just doing something wrong, you know, letting people down. I don't know if any of you all feel that way or not, but I kind of feel like, you know, I'm out here and I'm trying to do the right thing and stuff, and yet I feel so human that I just, gosh, you know, what could happen? You know, things happen. Sometimes you're even innocent. Things happen. You know, it's happened to a lot of people. But you know, what if? You know, and I don't lose sleep over it or anything. But you know, sometimes I think, oh gosh, what if I did that? I mean, what if I failed? You know, you read about people like that, and you know, that's one of my prayers is to Lord keep me strong, make sure I keep doing Your will. But and I think the biggest thing to do that is I think if you keep your faith strong, that God will keep you humble. And we talk about that a lot with our coaching staff too. And it's a lot harder with kids, I think. You know, they're the ones that really get big heads, you know, so we talk with them so much about it, you know, apply it to yourself that, hey, every year's a new year, you know, those kind of things. So, but I have enough people in my life, including my wife, that will keep me kind of right here. You know.
How'd you come up with the title?
The publisher, basically I wrote the book and I needed a publisher. There's a coach that I got to know pretty good over the last 10 or 15 years, and he took a job at the University of Charleston in Charleston, West Virginia. He'd been in other places and I never really visited his school, but when he got there, I said, oh, I can come and see you regularly. He does some of the stuff that we do. And got to know him pretty good. So I was at a clinic, I don't know, year before last, and I said, hey, I'm about to finish a book. I need a publisher, and I know you've done some stuff like that. And where do I go from here? And he said, well, here's my card. See that guy, that gray-headed guy over there? Walk over there and tell him I sent you. So I walked over to this guy, and he does kind of coaches books. And it's more X's and O's rather than what I wrote. But anyway, I said, hey, Coach DeMayo said, come see you. And I handed it to him. He said, send me a copy when you're done or close to done. I'll read it, and if I can't do it for you, I'll tell you who to go to. So he took a look at it, and he said, I'll do it for you. Now, he's not a big promoter. He's more of an online kind of guy. He said, if you want to promote it, you're going to have to get out there and sell it in clinics and stuff like that. So that was the one thing I hadn't planned on doing. I thought I'd just write it and that'd be the end of it. But I guess I have to get out and do this kind of thing. So I'll have to tag on with you guys and go places.
Luke can take you a lot of places.
Yeah. Well, I travel around.
Coach, it just makes sense to me that people, especially coaches, would read books like this, the younger coaches, so they can take 40 years of experience and learn from them early on. Was there any books that you read early on in your career that you think kind of helped shape yours?
Gosh, most of the books that I read early were more along the line of the books that they sold like that.
Right.
In other words, there weren't many books like this out there
Right.
that talked about this kind of thing. Or either I didn't know where to look. I think this has become more of a recent trend. You got guys like Tony Dungy, people like that have written things about from the heart, what sports is supposed to be about, what what father's supposed to be about, things like that. There's a lot more of those out there now. There's a bigger market that coaches can tap into than what there were maybe when I first started coaching. It seemed like everything that I got, they had these coaches book clubs and things, and you never saw anything like that in there. And even today, when you look at, you go to this site, you're not going to find that type of book. So it depends. As a coach, is I only interested in the X's and O's and how to get better at my profession, or is he interested in rounding out his profession? And so that was one of the reasons I felt like I needed to do this, because I just think there's a lot of great young guys in the profession, but you're going to have a hard time lasting if you don't get the whole picture of how to work with young guys.
Gotcha.
Coach, I had the opportunity to coach girls and boys basketball for a handful of years in Kentucky, and coaching girls is why I kept my hair short.
Bless you.
I'm just joking. But I did find out early in my coaching career that expectations could be the same for both, but communicating those expectations was a little different. So can you talk about the expectation, as a baseline of your program, but also how you may have communicated those expectations differently based on, characteristics and personalities of different players?
Well, our expectations obviously are pretty high. Even before we won championships, our expectations were high. We always expected our kids to be the best. We always told them, and I really believe this too. And you're gonna like this. I mean, you've heard it though, right? All right. But it goes right along with the business world. You don't set your expectations low, but you expect to compete for championships. We've always told our kids, we're going to compete for championships. You play at Belfry High School, you will compete for championships. Will you win them every year? Obviously not. I mean, that's just, nobody does. But will you compete for them? Yes. You're going to play in regional championship games. You will play in semifinals. You will hopefully play in state championship games. We've lost more state championship games than we've won. But you're going to have a chance to play in some big games. So expect big things. In business, expect big things. Don't set your sights down here. Up here is where you want to be. So I think you have to set big expectations, but you have to be realistic. And then you have to set goals of how to get there. So when I talk to kids one-on-one, we say, all right, now how do you get there? What do you have to do to get there? You don't just say, well, we're going to walk up there and play for it. There's a lot of work, obviously involved. So our expectations are high, but as I said, I think yesterday, we don't go in and, tell our kids, well, we're going to win a championship. We don't say we're going to win a district. We don't talk about how many games we're going to win. We still go back to that philosophy that we want to get a little better each day, and we want to get a little better each week, and we want to grow as a team. And then those expectations of playing for championships will take place if we'll do the little things right. And that's what I see. You talk about boys and girls. I'm the athletic director, and so I listen to our girls coaches talk about the differences. And I said, bless you, coaching girls, because they are unique, and they have a little trouble working with them. They said, you can't coach them as hard as you do guys. I said, I think I'd coach them the same way. I said, Coach, you wouldn't have any girls left. I said, I would adapt my coaching to do that, which I'm sure you've done. You can't coach them exactly the same way. But I also think at a certain level, you've got to bring them up to your expectations. And I think, you know, if you start a football program and say it was down here, you may have to start them where you are, but you're always working, say, here's where we're going to be. We're not here yet, but here's where we're going to be. Same
Absolutely.
thing in the business world. And that's what you shoot for and all those things. I don't know if that's answered your question or not, but that's kind of what we try to do. Is that good?
That's not excellent. I like that answer. Anybody else? Here's your shot.
And I'll just tell you real quick, the difference in that culture and a different culture, because I've been through both. No one, did anybody in here play for Belfry, except for me? No. I didn't think so. Whole different ballgame. I think that's one of the biggest things that frustrated me when we moved to Butler County. And I just call it how it is, because that's what I do. I call it how it is. And the difference was there was not that expectation. Like there, first round of playoffs, the expectation wasn't to get there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like if you got to wear a red jersey, you were lucky. You better go thank the good Lord that He designed you, that you were able to play well enough to get to wear the red jersey. There, it was like, we just want to make it to the first round of playoffs. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? That's called normal, right? So that's another reason why when I got into this business, I loved being able to build a team that I didn't have to go into a place where there was already this average mentality, which is why, you know, I built this business the first 6 months out of straight anger, right? Out of a lot of things. But I was like, we're going to be stinking champions. And if you don't want to be, then go find somewhere else, because I don't care. I'm looking for people who want to win. And that was instilled in me. Obviously, you know, I went to a lot of games growing up because Dad was always there. I mean, Mom would be sitting in the stands, and it would be pouring the rain, all right, pouring the rain, freezing cold, like 35 degrees, right before it's going to snow. And my head's poked through a jacket hole. Like I remember that being that little, but when they played, you were there, and that was what he created, not just with the team, but with the town. So it was a whole nother, I mean, it was you felt like you were playing the NFL if you just got to wear a jersey, right? Because you knew the expectations going in. I mean, it was, you say yes, sir, no, sir. If not, you better not think you're going to be around here much longer. So it was just different because I had to go through both, right? I went to that, and then I went to where everybody's just like, we made it to the first round of playoffs. Let's celebrate. Celebrate what? Right? Who cares? That's nothing. You ain't done nothing. You don't have a ring. Right? Not that, and I never got a ring, but just playing at that expectation, well, I mean, I do now. But I had to do something completely different just to get a ring. But that was the level that was expected of you. And I think that's huge in anything that you do. Have a high expectation for yourself. I mean, you know, he has it for everybody, not just himself. I mean, he has it for himself, not just everybody else. Same with in anything you do. If you want to have a winning team in anything, you got to hold yourself to high expectation, do more than others would expect, and then lead your team by example. But in my opinion, it was night and day. I was like, man, I just thought we moved in the state of Kentucky. I didn't know we moved to another planet. You know, as far as expectation on, we're here to win. We're not here, you know, to just be average. We're here to get better and to improve, and to, just like we had summer workouts. There were 5 of us that worked out. I was a senior class of 21 people when we moved. 5 of us worked out during the summer. I'm like, where's everybody at? Like, do they just think they're going to show up and win? Because that was instilled that I was going to summer workouts just because Dad was the coach, and I was running around. I was like 7 or 8, throwing footballs and, getting water bottles. And I had to go to summer practice when I wasn't even playing. So I'm thinking, man, you guys are playing, you better show up for summer workout. So just a whole different level. But the cool thing about, for most of us that, aren't in a sport, if you're in a business or in corporate, whatever it is, you get to set the tone for your team. And that's huge because just remember, what you set is what they expect, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? So if you set low expectations, don't expect to do much. So that's why my goals, whenever I set goals or expectations for myself, I want to make them to where most people would find them crazy. Because if I'm not borderline crazy on what I want, then I shouldn't expect to achieve anywhere close to that. I think the quote that you were getting to earlier is, it's better to aim for the stars and miss and hit the moon, right, than have a low expectation and achieve it. Because for most people, they set the bar here, they hit it, and they're like, yay, but you really would have done better if you set a high goal and then missed it, because you still would have been a whole lot higher than average. So
I think that's one reason everybody in our industry needs to read books like this, not just Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn, but books like this too, because we got to realize when a brand new person starts with our team, we're the ones setting that expectation, just like Coach Haywood did with you early on, and look what it did for you. If they come in and we set a real low expectation for them, we can't expect them to really end up winning and getting to the top. So I'm glad my kids are reading books like this at 15 and 16.
Yeah. You did mention books, though. I read a lot. I read all the time, and not necessarily athletic books, but if I get a good one, I will. Authors especially, real good things there. This guy Miles Monroe, some older books, Maximizing Your Potential is actually one of them. I get a lot of stuff out there, but he's got 4 or 5 books out there, and I don't know if you've read anything about T.D. Jakes. He's got some nice stuff out, and I don't know. There's a lot of authors out there that I read, and I just pick up here and there. And somebody will just hand me a book, say they know I read a lot, so they'll just say, I think you'll like this. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I do, and it's not always sports books. I read a basketball book the other day about guys that were like faith-based overcomers in the NBA. You say in the NBA, yeah, there's some good guys going on there. So I just think that there's a lot of good stuff out there. But back to your question was, back in the early days, what was out there when you get into coaches' books, that you just didn't find many like that, for people to read. And I said, well, there needs to be an option for them, at least to do that. Getting the word out in Kentucky has been a little bit difficult, but there is a coach's website. I've got to be able to do it in other states, and then say, well, who's this guy from Kentucky? It's not basketball, it's football. And say, who would that be? And hopefully get a little traction in some of these other states as well, and then let them realize that it's more than just a book about football. It's a book about some life issues and things like that. So, but you had a question.
Yeah, you mentioned last night you always encouraging your coaching staff to read a book, right? Read a magazine, what have you. And I can testify to the fact that if I were as intentional today as I am about personal development and growth when I was coaching, I know for a fact that I would have been a much more impactful coach. Sad but true that that time has passed, but either way, what is your personal growth? As you've invested in reading books, listening to audios, listening to speakers, how has that shaped you as a coach, and how has that influenced your players?
Well, tremendously. I don't know if I'm considered a good speaker or not, to be honest with you. I just talk, and I tell a lot of stories. But most of these stories are either personal things that have happened to me or some neat things that I've read about. And I read. My mom was a reader, and she passed that on to me when I was a little guy, and I've kept up with it. My aunt is the one that got me reading, as you call, personal growth books, and how other people have overcome things or different scenarios, and I just kind of kept it going. I'll read, I don't know how many books. In the off season, I probably read more, but now during the season, I'll read a book before I go to bed. Sometimes I need to relax. I may read a good Western. Sometimes I want to concentrate. I need to learn something, so I'll put some kind of book of knowledge you know, there. It might just be 2 or 3 pages before I fall asleep, but at least I'm going to be reading something. That's better than watching TV. I may watch a little TV before, but usually I'm working before I go to bed. And but that growth element in our lives is important, and I think reading's good. Some people like to listen better, and if you're driving, that's a good thing. I haven't quite got into that yet, but I probably need to because I do travel around a little bit. And but that element there has helped me grow as a person because it's given me knowledge. But it's also helped me tremendously as a speaker because it's given me information to be able to share with other people. Because people just don't want to listen to everything that you do. You know, they want a little bit of variety, and I get a lot of variety just by reading. And you say, oh boy, this is a pretty neat story. Like I said, I got a notebook with all kinds of little stories here and there that I use with players, I use for these things. And I said, I need this story. I pulled out that thing at 5 o'clock the other morning. I said, oh, there's a good one. I'll put that in here. You know, so that's really helped me, and it helps our coaches too. And I'll tell you this: I don't know how many meetings I start with our coaching staff, and I don't know if Duane remembers that or not. I said, let me tell you what I read today, or the day before. And I remember Mr. Welch doing the same thing, our great principal. I read this just the other day, and this is something I want to share. So there's so many good things out there that you can pass on. You might not remember it all, but at least if you're kind of current, up to date about all that kind of stuff, I think it's important.
Coach, did you encourage students to read and listen to audio and stuff? Because I've noticed a lot of them will just sit in front of the TV and watch things that, you know, whatever's on TV if you don't talk to them about it.
In front of these phones, what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, about like we do, you know. I'm just learning how to do that. You're training me right now. But yeah, oh yeah, I do. I work with a youth group. You know, we don't have too many. I'll go anywhere from 8 to 12 or something like that. But I'm always talking with them. I'll come in and say, all right, I want to know what you read or heard or saw that you can share with us tonight. And they've got this blank look. I said, you mean you haven't read anything?
SpongeBob.
The kids are terrible about reading today. You know, they don't know. It's like it's a foreign language to them. So in my own way, when I get to talk with kids, whether it's one-on-one as a group or small groups, I'm always saying you need to read because I think it's becoming a lost art. But I do find readers. I always say, when I see a kid reading a book, well, I pat them on the back. I say, great, what are you reading today? Because we do have some out there. But I think it's really important because there's a lot of knowledge. But we also need to let them know that not everybody is a reader. Well, there's other avenues. You know, do it on audio. You know, get a way to where you can get information. You know, there's a lot of good things out there that can be shared with you.
Absolutely. You know, on YouTube now you can find a lot of great speakers like yourself on YouTube that they can watch and not have to read. But I've been trying to impart to my sons that when you're 25 or 30 or 40, you'll look back at all those hours of SpongeBob. You won't remember those things. There's just be a waste of your time. Yeah, I'm not saying don't ever do it, you know, but not as much. Find something else to take some of that time as well.
Coach, it's obvious that you guys built a really successful program at Belfry and have a winning culture, but you know, we all know that those championships come because of a winning culture, and it's not the other way around. So can you talk about, you know, maybe how difficult was it to build that winning culture and that winning attitude before the championships came, before the community expected those championships?
I don't know. I think the community always expected
Pretty tough.
Belfry had gone to the state finals in 1979. That was the first trip. I wasn't there. So I came in 1984. And so the expectations were, hey, we want to get back to the state finals again. The first year we didn't get there. In 85 we did, 86 we did, but we didn't win. 86 was very difficult. We played Tillman in 85. Somebody mentioned Paducah, you know, being a long way off. So the culture in Belfry has always had a strong Belfry tradition. I mean, football's kind of been popular there for a long time. You know, they had some good teams back in the 60s. We had a couple of guys went to the pros, stuff like that. I think they took the genes with them, though. We don't have those kind of big players anymore. But you know, we're just a blue-collar community. and we're pretty close knit. You know, we're not a city or anything like that. So the culture is you gotta play on who you are and where you are. You know, you pass down of who's played before, your traditions. You know, we've got 80% of our kids will have a relative play there. You know, we play on that a lot. We got a lot of students that if their parents went to school, their grandparents went there. So you got a lot of that traditional stuff that we have at our school that a lot of schools don't have. A lot of schools are new schools. A lot of schools have consolidated. They've lost, you know, some of that. You know, they're trying to find those things. Well, we still have it. You know, since 1925. So I came into a kind of a school that had a little bit of tradition anyway. All right, what we had to do was take it to the next level. We had to get our kids to believe that we could walk into Lexington and beat city schools. We had to get them to believe we played Ashland, for instance. I wrote about that in the book. Rural schools have a difficult time believing they can beat city schools. They have a difficult time believing they can go and compete in academics and in anything. You know, they say, oh gosh, these people have more advantages than we do. Look at all those nice houses. You know, that's what they think. Look where we come from, out of these hollers, you know, trailers and all this kind of stuff. And not to say we don't have some nice homes up there, but you know, a lot of our kids are disadvantaged, and so you got to overcome those things. Well, how do you do it? The culture, and Coach remembers this. We used to scrim at States Creek every year. Everybody said, well, why do you do that? Well, we played them 2 or 3 years. We didn't beat them. We lost in overtime once, and then we started scrimmaging. I knew their coach, and we go down and spend the night with them. One of our players, now, you know, here's a, you know, I'm not a, you know, we got a lot of black athletes on our team now and stuff, so this is not a racial thing, but so he's a white guy, and Coach Walton used to mix them up and send them to people. All right, so he got paired with one of the black players on Tates Creek, and he ended up going to a block party. Now, can you picture a guy from Eastern Kentucky up a hall at a block party in downtown Lexington?
Oh, yeah.
Man, he came in like this. His eyes about like this. He'd been up all night. He said, man, there were scrims at 9 o'clock in the morning. He reminded me of that story. We used to go down and spend the night on Friday night. You talk about culture. Yeah, we were going to break our kids in and say, you're going to get used to playing these city guys. We're going to spend the night with them. We're going to play with them. And we did that. So we did that, I guess, 6 or 7 years. You know, we got used to, I said, you're going to get so used to playing these guys, it's going to be like playing anybody in Eastern Kentucky. All right, so we finally got to play Tates Creek again in the Pike County Bowl, about 2000, beat them. Yeah, wow. That's how you change the culture. You get used to doing it. We lost to Ashland, I guess, 8 or 10 years in a row. First 2 years we lost them. And I said, this has got to change, you know. So, but in the old days, Ashland was a big city school. Belfry was just an old country school. It didn't matter how good players they had. They had some good players back in the 60s. Why, they beat Belfry 50 points. And I said, so we played them. We lost by a touchdown a couple of years, and we pulled some tricks out of the bag, and we went down and just got them real good. You know, about, I don't know what year that was, 90 or 91 or something, 89. And of course, the next year they got us real good too. They paid us back. But at least we broke through that cycle. And so we managed to play everybody in Lexington, and we tell our kids, we kind of set this tone that we'll play anybody anywhere. We want them to know that, hey, we're Belfry, and that we will play any comers. We have to get that mindset where we are. You know, we got to get them. So this year, we're playing Knoxville Catholic. Best team in Knoxville. They're their top school. Last year we played Knoxville Christian. We beat them. Knoxville Catholic beat them worse than we did, so they're pretty good. We're playing Cabell Midland. That's the biggest school in West Virginia. And we're going to Northern Kentucky to play some school up there. It's pretty good. And then Tates Creek, we haven't played them for a while. So we play out of our league a lot. And it's taken a while to get there. And we may have overscheduled this year, so if we go 4 and 6 or 3 and 7, you'll know, well, they bit off more than they could chew. But we're having trouble getting games. But you change the culture gradually, but you set your expectations high. And you got to get teams and players to believe that, yes, you can. You know, we never say you can't do this. We never say that you're going to come up short. We're going to go and compete. And we always have this motto that you may get us. Yeah, you may beat us. But if we played long enough, we've got you. You know, if we could have kept you here late in the morning, we'd beat you. You know, the clock runs out. You know, things like that. And that we're going to learn from it. We'll be better next week. We'll be more prepared. You know, we'll get a chance to play next year. So you kind of have to change the culture. And then if you can get one program being successful, it'll rub off on the others. And they'll say, gosh, if they can do it, we can do it too.
That's
We
right.
can do it with our academic team. We can do it with our, you know, golf team or whatever it may be. So it has been a process. You know, it's a mindset thing. Hey, I'll tell you another good book. You want to read one? It's kind of educational. It's psycho. I don't know if you like it or not, but it's called Mindset. Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K. And there's a couple of chapters in there on coaching. It's mostly an educational book, but it's a lot of psychology stuff about how people are using the way people look at the world.
Yep.
There's two different styles of looking at the world. Some people have a fixed mindset, and some people have a growth mindset. And I've always thought, as a general rule, that coaches, athletes, primarily have growth mindsets. And unfortunately, a lot of teachers have fixed mindsets. And she's an education person, so she talks more about education than other things, but she talks some business stuff too. She's got a couple of chapters in there, maybe more too. She talks more about the business than she does probably coaching. But now she talks about athletics. It's a pretty neat book. Our whole school bought it. You know, I read it. We got it from Austin, Texas. Jacqueline's whole staff read it, and I showed it to our principal. I said, "We're going to get this for our whole staff." And I said, "Hell, we've been doing this for years, you know." But it's pretty neat reading. So I read a lot of a variety of things. I don't want to take up all morning now.
That's all right. Anybody else got a question?
Trying to think the right way to word this. So like sometimes if you have, from a recruiting standpoint, I guess, sometimes you might, I don't know how it works in high school football exactly, you might see somebody where one of the other coaches might see potential in Luke. I don't know why, but might see potential in a guy, and then maybe use Joseph or Hunter or someone else to say, hey, that kid needs to be in practice or something. Is there a means to transfer your influence, I guess, and also build that other player's confidence in going out and handling that referral, so to speak?
Within the school?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that all the time. Our coaches work pretty well together. You know, we're not a huge school, and you know, if we see a kid walking down the hallway, we see he's a pretty good athlete, somebody will just talk with him, you know, and say, you want to, you might try football, what do you think about it? Or I've talked to kids said, you ought to play basketball. You know, like I had one or two didn't play this year. I said, why didn't you play? I said, you played before. And I said, you're pretty good at it. You know, I kind of believe kids ought to play any sport they want to play. I've never been one of these people. I think you go to high school once and you ought to enjoy it. You know, play all you want to play. If you're going to play in the NFL or something, well, maybe you ought to concentrate on it. But if you look at college rosters, you'll find that they're all really good athletes. And more, you find out what they did. You look at an all-star roster, for instance, these all-star games, you'll find out most of these guys played 2 or 3 sports in high school because they were good enough to do it, you know. And so coaches that say, you ought to just stick with one sport, I think they're way off base on that. I don't think anybody should ever encourage something. That ought to be a total player, family, you know, that kind of decision. I think families sometimes are wrong. You know, sometimes they say, oh, my kid's going to be a great basketball player. He's in the 5th grade. He's just going to concentrate on that. And then he grows to be 5'9", you know. And, you know, I just, that happens.
That's what stopped me from going.
So you know, I think let them play anything they want. But yeah, talk with anybody. We just kind of say, yeah, try the sport if you want. If you don't, it's okay. You know, no hard feelings. But again, thanks. It's been a great pleasure coming down and talk with you. I hope it's been a benefit to you.
Thank you, Coach.